welfare state.
The rules-based order.
Then we had neoliberalism, where what the US are complaining now
Globalization.
is importing, yes.
Yeah.
But this US tremendously profited from it because most of the dollars, but that's another story. But now it reached the end because of the success of China and so on.
So we're saying that Donald Trump accelerated a change in the global order that was coming anyway.
Yeah, but you know what was the tragedy? That not only the left, but even this moderate liberal left didn't get this. For me, the sign that we are doomed was, do you remember inauguration of Biden?
This is America's day. This is democracy's day. A day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve.
It was a fake, false spectacle which implied that Trump was just an abomination, accident.
He'd gone.
Yeah, it's gone. No. Now with the repetition, it's clear that Trump got some things more correctly than the liberal democratic left.
Because here's what is forgotten by the critics. It's a competitive choice in a democracy, and the voters were offered this change-making Trump or Joe Biden, who could not talk, walk, or ride a bicycle. Why do we criticize voters for choosing the change maker? Why are people so obsessed with criticizing the voters in a democracy?
We, the citizens of America, are now joined in a great national effort to rebuild our country and restore its promise for all of our people.
I understand voters because, again, the Democratic Party played these really upper middle class games of identity politics and all that stuff, while there was a wide popular discontent which they didn't really address.
So the people who did some of the best work for Donald Trump are the US Democrat Party.
Absolutely. Look at the debates that preceded the last election. Nothing against Kamala Harris, but you couldn't even get out of her a serious, clear statement.
Now, this is the thing, because you took a lot of fire in 2016 because you said, I imagine that voting for Trump will produce an awakening on the left. So you were criticized around the world.
I know.
You appeared to be saying, vote Donald. You appeared to be saying, vote Donald.
Yeah.
So
and I still keep
are you pleased that you've got the Donald in the White House?
No, I was very
Well, is there an awakening on the left that you wanted? Is it starting?
There was a
But
little
is it
bit.
starting?
Remember that so-called democratic socialism.
I don't want to talk about democratic socialism. I want to ask you, in the United States, do you see an awakening on the left?
It did happen. Socialism became, through Bernie Sanders and so on, an option. But what disappointed me was that I knew that history is on the side of Trump. My very dangerous wager was, if we let him take power now, before he fully formulated his vision, maybe people will feel what he is and turn against him.
Okay, so
but it didn't work.
No. Can we say about America, before we leave America, has it got early onset autocracy?
Yes, but you know where I am more of a pessimist? Yes, but the key point is to see that Trump is nonetheless a symptom, a reaction to the failure of the mainstream welfare state, liberal democratic
And the failure of the globalists to spread the booty. The billionaires did very well from globalization, but the American steel workers, the American car makers, they did not boom like the billionaires boomed. It was an inequity has given us...
No, and here Trump is right.
He's right.
The situation in neoliberalism was American oligarchs exploiting Chinese workers.
And American workers at the same time. They did the double, didn't they? Because they
Yeah, but also many of them were unemployed and so on. They
Okay.
didn't buy- But I think Trump's illusion is that, as it was often noted, that it's possible a kind of a return to the 50s, factories in the United States and so on. I think that that type of capitalism is over. But you know what really worries me? Now I move from Trump to the world.
We need to do that.
Yeah, that I saw here at the entrance to this house a statue of George Orwell.
You did. I met you near it.
Yeah. I don't quite trust Orwell's vision of 1984, but at one point he was terrifyingly right. You know the geopolitical situation in 1984? Three big superpowers, each has its sphere of influence. Oceania, United States, United Kingdom. Then you have Eurasia and you have China. This is where we are now. That's the horror today. That's why Trump and Putin, even when they don't agree, they speak the same language.
Yes.
Like the deal is you, Trump, do what you want, more or less, with Greenland, Canada. I do what I want in Ukraine, Georgia, Georgia, and so on. And I think Europe is caught in between, divided. So I am here a pessimist in the sense that Europe not only should do it, but it's condemned to become to a superpower, to act as a superpower. Even if this means, I have no illusion about China, but even if this means at least a temporary, at the trade level, pact with China.
Right, now there you are, you see, because the country that is most free to act in all of this is the UK, because there is a problem for the EU moving swiftly, as we know.
Yeah.
The UK could choose between Europe and China and the United States. Do you think it's inevitable that Keir Starmer is at a fork in the road? He's trying to play all sides, but will he have to choose?
You know, in short term, up to a certain point, you can play this game. But in the long term, you lose. You know what?
And
for
what
me,
who should he choose? What should he choose? 'Cause if he could,
I think absolutely Europe and China.
but
with
we
the-
voted to Brexit. We told Brussels, push off with your mission creep. This is a similar message to the Beltway was sent by American voters. The British voters, marginally, said we wanted to away with your big Brussels. We want more control.
But as it is clear now, the alternative to Europe is not big sovereign United Kingdom. It's United Kingdom as de facto, in some sense, a colony of the United States.
So will Donald Trump be an accelerant for bringing a new European unity that is post-EU? I'm not saying
Let's
that
hope.
the EU
I'm
will,
more of a
but
pessimist
I'm not. Do we say
because
that?
I think he's already in full accordance with Putin, disuniting, splitting Europe.
Will the EU fracture? Do we know as Europeans what vision we have of our political unity? Do we know it yet? And will the EU fracture?
We don't know it yet, which is why, surprisingly for a leftist, I am in favor of militarization, arms, and so on. I don't believe in this pseudo-leftist bullshit. You have to choose either arms or butter or whatever.
Yeah, trade.
No, listen, so I will surprise you even more. I think the left needs, sorry for saying this, a leftist, not dictator, but charismatic authoritarian person. They already had it. I know that they are not the same. I'm not crazy. But look at FDR, Roosevelt. He de facto ruled as not as a dictator, but he was so strong that he ignored the Congress, and with investing, especially with World War II, into arms, this didn't diminish the consumerist production. In 1945, even if you take away all military production, the production of civil consumerist production was higher than ever. So if you do militarization in an intelligent way, it can help boost production. But what Europe doesn't have is, it's not just enough to militarize. You have to have a clear political vision. You know what I really hate? I hope we'll agree. This leftist whose orgasm is, my God, 1 million people on the main square all protesting. I don't care about that. What interests me is what you call, I think in English and American, the morning after. How will actual people feel the difference 3 months later when things return to normal? And here the new left will have to be really, in a good sense, pragmatic, in the sense of not making this crazy, nationalize this, do that, but like Chinese, allow free market, but nonetheless control it, regulate it, and we have models, Singapore, China up to a point, and so on. The challenge of Europe is a very simple one. How to do this controlled market with nonetheless democracy surviving.
Yeah, well,
that's the big choice.
Right, but the figures that are best known to the outside the borders are from the right. Nigel Farage has got to a situation where his small number of MPs in the UK Parliament has a third of the support, or at least it has 25%.
But that's the tragedy of the United Kingdom.
Well, we're not a tragic country. We are a country with a democracy, and we have the ruling party has 25%, the old Conservatives has 25%, and the Reform Party has 25% of the support at the moment. And that proves my point, is there is no dominant figure from politics at the moment in our own country, let alone in the countries of the EU.
Nonetheless, I think that what gives me hope is this very chaos. Because this chaos, it's tragic situation, people are aware of it, and I hope that there will be enough popular dissatisfaction in Europe with Trumpian alternative to neo-globalism, and that something out of this dissatisfaction will emerge, but the left has to get rid absolutely of first of this old welfare state social democratic dream that's over, because you end up with Keir Starmer. Can I be very brutal here? And I'm not against him personally. Isn't it that the UK has today one big center-right moderate party? It's called Labour Party, and then it has some rightist marginal parties. So the first thing for the left to realize is, I'm sorry to provoke you, to quote Lenin, who said in 21, when revolution gets stuck, it's not enough to just stop and rethink situation. You have to descend back to 0 point and start to climb the mountain for a totally different direction. That's what left has to do, and I'm very open here, we don't have time to go into it. For example, enough of this postmodernism, irony, and so on. The new right took this from us. The new left should be literally neoconservative left in the sense of, yes, it's global organization, control the market, but at the same time, we should speak now for moral majority, common decency, and so on. The new right is obscene enough. That's why, for me, the mega tragedy was, you remember 6th of January, 5 years ago. My friends were crying because they said, isn't this the leftist dream? United people penetrate the seat of power. Yes, sorry, they took even this from us. So isn't the paradox in this? Compare persons like Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. Donald Trump as a person, isn't he a pure postmodern relativist, making jokes of himself, changing position? Bernie Sanders is a common, decent, consistent man. I think it's time, it's horrible what I'm saying, for the left to stop with this subversive bullshit and so on. We are entering with this new Orwellian order. It's a new age of shamelessness. Big powers do what they want because they can. They don't even feel this hypocritical need to somehow justify it.
You have brought me near the end of our time. You've brought me to, I think, your unifying view, this new age of shamelessness.
Yeah.
And it reminds me, as a student of history, and you're a leading thinker, but I studied the history. This is the past. That's what we had before. It led to war and reorder,
But,
and the rules-based order that followed the Second World War, and the generation, like my father, who came out of that war, they had seen what war was, so they knew what peace was. I think what we're looking at is complacent voters, are we not? People who took so much for granted.
Yeah.
Why should America pay for Germany's defense in 2025? Why should the Europeans pay less than the 3% of NATO? The Europeans are shown by history, are they not, to have been smug. In the new age of shamelessness were smug Europeans who wanted American voters to pay for their defense. That's what history will show the Europeans.
Absolutely. That's why I always emphasize this. Don't dismiss Trump just as a confused
And don't
idiot.
just criticize Trump.
Yeah, his points about this trade imbalance, about how Europe played its small game by always secretly relying on the American umbrella and so on. Here,
Can we say that
Trump is right. Liberal Democrats are just, they didn't propose anything new. They just repeat the old mantra. Let's return to social democratic welfare. That will not work. The only hope is that this obvious void felt by people will give birth to something. And I'm ready to go pretty far here. This something can even be, now you have the final provocation, this something could even be a leftist Trump, when by Trump we mean somebody who acts decisively in a fast way, like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who did it ultra successfully.
we must say to you, thank you very much indeed.
When I was young, we were this old-style leftist. We thought those in power have dignity, but we, you know, all obscene gestures, we spoke, used dirty words, and we got the answer, which is that those in power are now more obscene than we even imagined to be. We got it so wrong in the last elections, how Democrats really cannot learn anything. I'm seriously, not a bad joke, honored to be here. And I will try, since I talk too much, to keep it short. This is more some introductory remarks to give you an idea where we are. So, where are we? I like to flirt with quantum mechanics, but what fascinates me is how to apply notions of quantum mechanics, superpositions, collapse, and so on, to social events, to history. And my basic idea is this one, while still, in some sense, a radical leftist, but be warned, my official self-designation is now a moderately conservative communist. I will explain why. I think that what we have to leave behind is this either liberal or Marxist dream of a history which, even if you say, yeah, it's contingent, it may not happen, which points in a certain direction, like with Fukuyama, we had end of history. Fukuyama is not an idiot. Now he is for Bernie Sanders. He saw that that doesn't function. Or we have orthodox Marxists who think, yeah, there are some complications, but nonetheless, communism is in the future. And, you know, even if they mask their determinism, like the famous saying by Rosa Luxemburg, the future will be socialism or barbarism. You know what she missed. In Stalinism, we get both at the same time, no? Socialism. So my idea is this one. You know, this basic idea of quantum superpositions. A particle goes, I simplify to the utmost, from point A to point B. But to understand what happens, you must presuppose then that in this, let's call it, virtual state of waves, particle takes all possible routes, and then in one it collapses. And I think we are today in such a moment. Who knows where we are going? We know that we have 3-4 deadly threats, crises. Ecology, war, immigration, I mean, population movements, and so on. I will not go into it, but the key problem is how they will interact. Like, some people think that if ecology crisis goes even in a more terrible direction, then there will be less wars. I'm not so sure. It's completely open. So my idea is that we are now in a state of superpositions. It may be some new socialism, it may be new barbarism with islands of civilization around it, murderous violence. But now comes my bad news. You can ask me questions later. I think that makes me sad. The most probable result will be what I call, not that I like it, soft fascism. By soft, I mean not direct Nazi fascism, kill them, but simply what? The best definition of fascism is, for me, conservative revolution. That is to say, you want to participate in the capitalist dynamic, fast development, but you are aware, many intelligent fascists knew this, you are aware that left to itself, free capitalism and liberalism can end up in social disintegration. So the idea is in economy capitalism, but controlled by a strong state, which legitimizes itself by a reference to some mostly invented, it doesn't matter, traditional religious, but not necessarily religious ideology. You know, now I will maybe hurt some among you, but you know who is here? Almost my model. I closely follow what goes on there. China. I read, people don't notice this. 2 months ago, Xi, their leader, gave a speech, and he began with, our youth is not educated enough, we have to train them ideologically. Then I expected the usual stuff, read more Marx, Mao. No, he said Confucian tradition. We need that tradition to hold things together. Modi is doing the same in India. Extremely brutal capitalism, but, and so on. This is, if you ask me, for the majority of the world, the most probable direction. So history is not on our side. Another thing that worries me extremely, I wonder if you noticed it, is that more and more states are so-called rogue states. Now, don't be afraid. I will not use this term in the usual Western developed imperialist way, but who is today a rogue state? I propose a very simple definition of a rogue state. you have a certain legal structure, laws, police, and so on. And a rogue state, one of the approaches, is the state where the existing order cannot reproduce itself legally in its own ideological terms and needs a support of brutal illegal violence. The first idea that comes here is, of course, Haiti, where the state fell apart and even more now than 80% of the territory is run by gangs. But why remain there? Let me go to the, for some people, highest points. What about Russia? Wagner Group was a typical half-legal, illegal military group, as we learned now, totally financed by state, but nonetheless kept at some distance from power. Then, let's be frank, till now the mask has fallen, settlers on the West Bank in Israel. They were following Israeli laws themselves illegal. And that's the tragedy of Israel today. Itamar Ben-Gvir was condemned by Israeli courts some 20 years ago as a racist criminal. Now he is a minister for, of course, security. Even in the United States, look at all those groups which are in this mixture today at the same time, anti-Muslim and anti-Semitic and all, like Proud Boys and so on. Trump keeps them at distance, but nonetheless manipulates with them. This is the true failed state. A state itself cannot reproduce itself in accord with its own, not just ideology, but legal premises, and so on. So we should be aware of this radical openness of the situation. It's obviously that our situation today cannot go on indefinitely. But the situation is not predetermined. We don't know how it will, again, to use in a simplified way the quantum terms, into what single reality will it collapse. I don't have now time to go into my favorite Hegelian topic, because I think that Hegel was aware of this, of what? Of retroactivity, in the sense then that when a certain version takes place, retroactively, it doesn't, of course, change the past empirically. What happened, happened. But the narration, the way we perceive the past, changes. We are all the time changing the past. And although Marx is often dismissed as naive progressist, yes, there are these elements in Marx. But nonetheless, in some place in his big manuscript, Grundrisse, he says something wonderful. He says, in the same way that anatomy of a man is the key to the anatomy of the ape, capitalism provides the anatomy, allow us to interpret all the previous stages. But I think Marx is here radically anti-teleological. His point is not, oh, capitalism was predetermined and so on. No, his point is much more refined. Once capitalism won, we retroactively read the entire history, we rewrite it as leading towards capitalism. That's why I love, although I don't always agree with them, the work of David Graeber and the other guy, Wengro. They tried to show this superposition in ancient Inca society. You know how it wasn't just sacrificing children, horror. There was an incredible local democracy at work. It just collapsed in. So my lesson is to understand what happens, always focus on what might have happened but didn't happen. Because what might have happened doesn't simply disappear. It remains either as a reactionary dream or as a very progressive dream. I will not go on in this direction, just to say that because of all this, I think we should be very careful in how we define progress. For example, the big question today, I'm approaching the end, artificial intelligence. I think we approach it in the wrong way when we ask the question, will it be able to think, really? And by this, we usually mean think like us humans. First, I think, again, that it's an abstract question. We don't know the answer in the sense that why do we always formulate it in these terms? Will it think like us? It's possible that a totally different form of, we may even call it spirituality, will emerge, but no, this is my psychoanalytic approach. And to provoke you, I will use it. When I asked myself, and I spoke with many specialists, I accepted this stupid debate. Of course, what can artificial intelligence do? Of course, it can calculate whatever much faster than we. It can learn itself, self-reproduce. But my point, and my partners in dialogue were usually shocked, are two things which are, for me, specifically human. And they are crucial for our humanity. One is the daily rituals. No, superstitious habits, rather. You know, for example, I have one, and don't give me that bullshit, that psychoanalysis, that it has to do with my fear of insemination or what. Whenever I wash my hands, even if I see that no water is dropping, I have to check it with my hand. What if I just don't see them? But this is an absolute habit. But you know all these habits. For example, I read in a biography of Agatha Christie that every evening, after finishing her writing, she took a bath and ate an apple. Why? What's the point of these stupid habits? They have no deeper meaning. I think it's wrong to play psychoanalysis here. No, they are a pure appearance of meaning. But you know what I mean? Meaning as such without any meaning. It's wrong to say, oh, this means that trauma. I don't know, Agatha Christie was thinking that she is Eve in paradise, apples, whatever. No, it's just this empty appearance of meaning by means of which we counteract the obvious chaotic meaninglessness of our lives. Now, my big surprise comes. The second thing, I don't think that artificial intelligence can swear, really. Swearing is, for me, something very interesting. It's not just vulgarity. Swearing means a proof that we humans, we exist in language. We think, but thinking occurs in words, in language, but we are never at home, really, in language. And in swearing, when you swear, we don't express simply dissatisfaction with some objective event. I want to do this. No, it's frustration about not being able to formulate it in your language. So I have here, and I talked about this with my religious friends. I have many, and they agreed with me, that I always like this anachronistic tautological movements, you know, that imagine Christ on the cross, no? Forget about that, Father, why have you forsaken me? When he was dying, he should be swearing. Maybe that's the paradox, but I think there is truth. He should have said, oh Christ, where I am, and so on. But you see what I mean? It's a certain embarrassment of our inability to be in language, which is constitutive of our humanity. Now, let me conclude with another maybe surprising moment for you. What makes me really sad today is the exploding, I cannot but use this term, shamelessness. Things which in public space were simply impossible, even 10 years ago. You can say them publicly today. And I don't mean just the obvious example, all the vulgarities of Donald Trump, of your own Boris Johnson, and so on, but even, for example, I'm definitely not anti-Semitic. I see also the Israeli side. But what really shocked me is two things that happened recently in Israel. In August, they had a debate when, in Knesset, their parliament, Zionist members protested because in a prison just south of Jerusalem, where Hamas prisoners are kept, nobody denies it now. There are even video clips. Guards were doing pretty rough things, like pushing up the rectum, big metal sticks with needles in them. Many, many prisoners died from bleeding. Okay, I'm here, I try to be neutral. Who knows what other sides are doing? I'm not saying. But what depressed me is the debate in Knesset. You can find it easily on YouTube. When the predominant tone was, it's a shame that our guards were arrested for doing this. Hamas members are less than human. We can do whatever we want to them. You see, I think it's better hypocrisy than this type of openness. And also, another thing, similar thing shocked me. Now, an honest, with decency, Israeli soldier, his name is Eliran Mizrahi, returned from Gaza, where he was ordered to do horrible things. With a bulldozer, he was running over hundreds of dead and alive Palestinians. He was in such a crisis that he killed himself. And the reaction was not, which would be my reaction. At least he obviously had some decency. No, the reaction of official IDF psychologists was how to train soldiers that they will not have ethical problems with acting like this. That's for me the end, this shamelessness. So, to conclude really, what fascinates me so much is that Jacques Lacan, my psychoanalytic teacher, gave a seminar, The Other Side of Psychoanalysis, in 69-70, his reaction to 68 events, where instead of simply supporting student revolts and so on, he said, what you are lacking is shame. He said, the ultimate goal of psychoanalysis today in our era of permissiveness, is not get rid of paternal oppression, realize all your fantasies, but it's a lack of shame, which then results in universalized perversion. Lacan is here referring to something that already Freud knew. Perversion is much less subversive than hysteria. And if you know a little bit of psychoanalysis, this couple is usually also sexualized. Like, this is the usual male chauvinist stance. Women are hysterical, they just moan, but secretly they want a new master, no? While men are perverse, they do what they dream about. Freud already knew it, that he put it literally. Nowhere is the unconscious more oppressed than in perversion. All great things happen through hysteria. And this is, I think, the lesson for us. When I was young, we were this old-style leftists. We thought those in power have dignity, but we, you know, all obscene gestures, we spoke, used dirty words, and we got the answer, which is that those in power are now more obscene than we even imagined to be. We got it so wrong in the last elections, how Democrats really cannot learn anything. They thought that, you know, when Trump was caught lying, they thought, oh, now we caught him.